All right, continuing on with chapter 22, looking at how to work in the voiceover business. And these days, it's going to be rather challenging to not establish yourself with a business presence if you're not incorporating social media in one way or another. Your presence as a voice actor on these digital platforms is not necessary for voice acting success, but there are 3 reasons why you may be of value to you, why they may be of value to you, I should say, and your freelance business marketing efforts. First off, social media are free and they're effective. Now, they're free in terms that they don't really cost you money. It's generally a free sign up to get on just about every social media platform. But as we will see, there is a certain time investment that comes along with that. They're effective in that several people are going to be on various different social media platforms, and it is an effective way to reach out to certain target audiences. Secondly, social media build and extend your brand. It allows you to have a certain control of some of the messages that you are putting out, showcasing some of your work, talking about the things that you're doing. And it helps people to be able to have a fairly regular presence of you as they scroll through their various profiles and feeds and what have you. Thirdly, social media establish valuable relationships. If you use the tools of social media to your advantage, it helps you to be able to connect with people, not just those that are also in the voice acting business, but with various businesses and organizations, various production companies, those that you would need to do networking with in order for you to succeed in the business. Technology enables the phenomena of social media, computers, tablets, smartphones. They're the things that make it happen, web servers and all that sort of thing. But what gives social media its vitality is human nature. Who we are as people makes social media vital. It gives social media its character, and it also presents the potential that is out there. And those 3 factors, vitality, character, potential, they all come to life in your marketing, and social media will amplify them. So it turns you from just being another voice out there to having a bit of a personality and a bit of a presence. And again, it's another way that you can showcase how unique and distinct that you are. Now, these days there are several different platforms that are out there that you could make use of. So trying to determine which ones you should be on, there's 2 main categories of social media platforms that we're going to take a look at. There's the one that most of us are going to be familiar with, which is the various personal social media platforms. And those platforms are ones that businesses tend to use to reach out to individual consumers. So your Facebook, your Twitter, your YouTube, they are the most popular. They offer huge audiences, but sometimes you need to look for a platform that perhaps just because it's most popular with everybody doesn't necessarily mean it's most popular for the audience that you're trying to reach. One of the best business to business platforms out there is a professional site like LinkedIn. With LinkedIn and services like it, you can reach out to decision makers, those that own businesses, those that make financial decisions for businesses, and it's a way for you to be able to reach out and either solicit them directly, or as you put yourself out there and let people know who you are and what you do, they may be able to make recommendations for you and refer you to other places in a way that perhaps the more casual, personal social media site would not do as well. Where do you start? Well, first off, you want to make your profile on the various platforms as complete as possible. So when you're signing up for an account, when you're editing your profile, put on as much information as you possibly can about who you are and why you're there. Keep your information consistent across all platforms. So you don't want your Facebook profile to say this thing about you and then your LinkedIn profile to say something completely different. And related to that, as much as is possible, something to keep in mind is that the handles that you use on different social media, as much as you possibly can, try to have the same handle so that you can tell people you're on Facebook at John Smith, you're on Twitter at John Smith, you're on LinkedIn at John Smith. Make sure that you have consistency, not just in your content, but also your identity and who you are. It makes people it makes you a lot easier for people to find. Use a good headshot picture. Now, we'll talk a little more detail in a later chapter about the debate over using headshots for voice acting work. These days, we tend to be very visual when it comes to just about everything. So a lot of people say, even though you might not have your face in a photograph or on screen, that a headshot is still a good thing to use because it identifies you, yourself, personally, and it humanizes you a little bit, makes you a little more personal. But there are those that, for various reasons, choose not to use a headshot. And if that's you, then you want to make sure that you have a good brand logo. And the way that your logo is developed, it can say a lot about your business. It can say a lot about you. So make sure that the logo that you create for yourself is something that truly represents who you are. Now, we've already talked about this one a little bit, but especially when we're dealing with LinkedIn, it is worth repeating that you want to complete your profile to the max. LinkedIn pays special attention to keywords, and your name will come up in appropriate searches as you fill out your profile as completely as you possibly can. It is to your advantage, especially on a platform that is used for professional networking, that anything that you can do to add to your profile that explains who you are, what you do, is going to make you that much easier for people to find. The honest and genuine approach is going to be the best when you're filling out a profile. Social media is a practice in transparency. Be sincere and straightforward in your profile. One thing that is common across all social media is because of the human aspect of it, because of the social aspect of it, there is a high value placed on integrity. You are who you say you are. You do what you say you're going to do, and you're not trying to bait and switch anybody. Because if you're caught not being who you say you are, if you're caught not being genuine, if you're caught not representing yourself the way that you should, the social media world will turn against you, and will turn against you very quickly. So, be honest, be genuine, be real. All right. Now that your profile is set, what do we do next? Well, keep these things in mind. You want to be present. Use social media to your advantage. Hang out there. Post things. Respond to other people's posts. So participate in the forum. Answer other people's posts. Contribute by posting articles or making comments on other people's posts. Pay it forward. If you see something on social media you like, share it, copy it, give attribution to the person that originally posted it. Make sure you're offering links to things that your audience is going to be interested in. If you're a cartoon voice character, Provide links to other voice actors that have done cartoons, maybe some behind the scenes sorts of things, or show articles that kind of take the process of what happens when a cartoon is created and how long it takes for production and the way the voices are matched up to the screen and that sort of thing. Make sure that you offer things that your audience is going to be interested in. Post pictures and videos. People like to look at pictures online in social media. It's a visual medium. Videos always capture people's attention if you have that ability to do so. Get involved in conversation threads. Create relationships. Try to make new friends, if you will. And, discover things that you have in common with certain people. Discover things about people that help you to learn and expand. Ask questions. Watch for others to answer your questions. When people ask questions of you, answer them. Have conversations. Finally, follow or friend others and encourage others to follow or friend you. So the big thing here when we're talking about interaction on social media, using social media to your advantage, it's not the quantity of content that you post. Although there is something to be said for posting content on a regular basis. You don't want your profile to be silent for too long. Or if people are expecting things on a certain sort of interval, you should deliver on that. That said, though, what's really important is the quality of your relationships online that is going to bring you the most benefit of being on social media. While you're on social media, make sure you join various groups. Voiceover groups are where the meaningful interaction with colleagues and even prospective clients takes place. It's a great way to learn about all of those that are in the industry, do some networking, maybe learn about how you can get a gig or two. Mining social media for client prospects is a marathon, not a sprint. Again, this is not something that happens overnight. Unless you're lucky enough to have something that goes viral. But you're going to be making an investment of time for the long haul when you build up your social media presence. And then on LinkedIn, you can directly approach individuals and groups who may not necessarily be first order or direct connections in your contacts. It's one of the major advantages of LinkedIn that helps to facilitate the networking process, where on more casual and personal social media sites, you can reach out to different people, but there's a lot more filtering that happens, and that sort of thing. Whereas in LinkedIn, it's possible for you to be able to hear from someone that is not within your direct circle and to try to initiate a conversation. Now, some tips for net etiquette, or netiquette, if you will, and the use of time on social media. First off, social media writing should be unambiguous and straightforward. In other words, be honest, be real. Don't be lacking in personality, but be clear in the things that you say. So you don't want to be bland, but you also want to make sure that the words that you use are measured and that there's a specific purpose to what you're saying and how you're saying it. Now, these days, it is very easy for things to kind of blow up online, especially with different opinions and things like that. So if a conversation that you're having does turn contentious, you're going to want to basically keep your patience, keep your temper down, and use equanimity. In other words, use stability, use calmness, because nobody ever wins a flame war online. It's the mark of a quality person that is able to have a discussion online and get somebody to change the way that they're thinking. And more often than not, it's going to happen as a direct result of having a certain amount of humility, having a certain amount of compassion, instead of making curt, absolutist sort of remarks that agitate people. So do your best to keep things civil when you're online, and when others choose to not be civil, then you can take measures to either calm that down, or if it gets too out of hand, it's okay to block and remove those sorts of things in order for you to be able to keep a certain sense of sanity and peace on your profile. It's good to set clear in your mind and in your business plan what you plan to use social media for and how much time each day you are going to allocate to the various networks. This is something that I would dedicate a set time to, and it's something that I would set a time limit to. So if you have things to do online, make sure that you are getting those things accomplished, but try not to linger too long. Otherwise, it's very easy to get sucked into the vortex. If you need tips on time management when it comes to social media, there's a short list in your textbook that I would consider you to take a look. Should you upgrade to a paid social media account? Most cases, no. However, if you were to choose to do so, there are some special features in LinkedIn that give a much more fuller experience that you might find beneficial, but that's something that you would have to decide for yourself. Using things on the free level tends to work well for most people. Social media can be daunting and time-consuming if you let it. Again, you want to make sure that you set time limits on these sort of things. Become familiar with how various services can be integrated. Things like websites, cloud services, social media platforms. There's lots of ways that you can take a piece of content that you design for one particular platform and maybe with just some minor adjustments make it work on other platforms as well. Take social media and your online presence overall in small steps and in an organized manner, but know that success online requires regular, consistent commitment with your vision, mission, and goals always in the forefront. There is something to be said for having a regular presence online, but also keep in mind that you're in the voice acting business. You're not necessarily in the social media business. Now, as things grow and develop, if you feel the need for a bigger presence online, that's something you can devote more time to, perhaps pay for certain tools or hire somebody to manage certain things for you. But you'll have to find the right balance for yourself as to what's appropriate for you in terms of the use of social media, the time investment you're going to make, and if you decide to go that route, the monetary investment that you're going to make. But the idea is to be regular, to be consistent, and just let people know that you're there, that you're participating in the dialogue and the discourse, and, of course, that you're available. Now, for those of you that may be interested in working internationally, whether it is providing your voice to clients in other countries or perhaps working in different languages, there's a little bit of help for you in the textbook. The voiceover marketplace these days with the online world is truly international in scope. So it is possible to have clients halfway around the world. I once was working with a person that operated out of Israel. It was a very interesting time working with that person. Many online booking websites offer voice talent who are fluent in many languages and who are heard around the world. So if that's something that you are able to do, you are fluent in another language, it is something that could be an asset to you. Reserve looking for international work until the voice actor has a strong client base in their own country or native language. Now, that's largely going to be due to a time investment sort of thing. Now, if perhaps you have close ties to another country and you have a good network base that is in another country, by all means, take advantage of that. Especially if you do have the ability to coordinate your time schedule with those in another time zone and another culture. And that's something that comes easily for you. but you want to make sure that you can kind of handle the workload that you have in front of you to begin with. If you want more details on kind of different tips and tricks and someone's personal story, the story from Andy Boynes in the textbook would be a good one for you to look through. Now, this can become a touchy thing. And it's one of those cases where when you know your message and know your audience, sometimes certain voices may not work for certain types of work. And it could be for nothing other than the fact that your voice has a certain quality. And many times we tend to associate that with someone's gender, or while the book doesn't really go into this in particular, someone of a certain race or a certain culture and the sounds that tend to be associated with those things. Now, with that said, really what we're talking about here is we're trying to find the balance between what your skill sets are as a voice actor versus the things that a particular audience is going to expect from a message it receives. So, regardless of whether you're a male or female voice actor, your primary tool is the voice you were born with. But how is your natural voice perceived? What is it about your individual voiceover delivery style that will get you work? Now, so if you have a certain tonal quality, if you have the ability to talk with certain dialects, with certain pitches and tones, if you're able to use, so-called 50-cent words, you have a rather verbose vocabulary. If you're really good at certain types of slang, then you're going to be better suited for certain types of work than others. Now, with that, that's largely going to be because different audiences will have different voice preferences. And a voice will just kind of naturally fit into a scenario for a particular production, either because it matches the character that is necessary or the sound of the voice is going to appeal to the particular audience member that is targeted. So who is the target demographic? What are their beliefs, attitudes, values? What are their personal tastes like? Are you going to be able to meet the audience where it is at to be able for your message to be conveyed? And again, sometimes geographic location can be an asset as well if you're able to talk with a certain accent or dialect or make that fit within the expectations of the audience. So that may not necessarily mean that it's always going to be a guy that is best suited for a particular role. It may not mean that a female is going to be best suited for a certain role all the time. However, those that have certain vocal qualities may be able to do things that other people can't. A great example of this would be Nancy Cartwright, who is, well, obviously she is female, but she is the voice of a young boy named Bart Simpson. So really what it comes down to, if we're just talking about voice acting and we're not relying on appearance, it really comes down to the perceptions and the expectations of the audience. And if your voice will fit that, then it will work. But if the listener is not attracted to the voice, it doesn't matter how good the product or service is, doesn't matter how good the performance is, you'll get tuned out. That's what it comes down to. So while we tend to talk about it in terms of male, female, or in terms of race, or in terms of culture, that may not necessarily be what the sticking point is, as much as it is the actual sound itself that comes out. Most consumers really don't care these days whether the voice is male or female or whatever, although that can be a major consideration for the producer. Honestly, what consumers care about is that there's a sense of trust and authenticity in the tone of the voice. Now, when we say trust, we may not necessarily mean that we believe you from an integrity standpoint, your personal character. But we trust that the sound that is coming out is representative of who we are picturing is saying these particular lines. If you were never to have met Nancy Cartwright, would you have known that Bart Simpson's voice is actually the voice of a real-life female? So there's things that you have to consider there. And if you tend to have a voice that gravitates towards a certain type of person or a certain type of temperament, then it is going to limit you in some ways to what you can do. But the things that you are limited into what you do, it's very possible that you would do those things extremely well. So that's your niche. That's part of what we've been talking about last semester is your signature voice. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something to keep in mind that even if you think you have the perfect ability to present a production, if it's not what the audience is looking for, then it may not matter, regardless of who you are outside of your particular voice and sound. Okay, trends. You ever notice that someone will come up with a great idea for a concept for an ad, and then all of a sudden you'll see ads in that similar style from other companies for a certain period of time, maybe 3 months, 6 months, something like that? Well, that's because all the best ideas in media are always stolen from somebody else. And, well, if something works, people are going to gravitate towards that and use it up as much as they possibly can until the thing doesn't work anymore. But even besides just writing concepts and storyline concepts, the thing is that really what we see is that there's this continual evolution of the way that productions are created. The advertising industry in particular is generally in a constant state of flux, simply because the job is to reach today's customers in a way that will motivate them to buy the current hot item. So in order to do that, advertisers must connect on an emotional level with their audience. We kind of talked about that to a certain extent in the last section. But in order to connect with that audience, the delivery of a commercial must be in alignment with the attitude and behavior of the current target audience. So a lot of times, because you tend to see certain things kind of evolve and people do certain styles of ads and they all tend to come out around the same time, and then you see another thing come out for a certain period of time. It's because advertisers are trying to respond to what they believe consumers are into at that moment, what's hot, what's in, what's cool, what's capturing their attention. And if they see someone else do something and it works, they're going to give it a shot and hope that it works for them as well. And they'll do that until the thing doesn't work anymore. Keep up with current trends and develop flexibility and versatility in your performing style. You may develop a performing style that is perfect for a certain attitude or for a market niche, but if you don't adapt to changing trends, you may discover that your style is no longer in demand. So that's part of that continuing education aspect. Always be learning, always be improving. Really, the best way to keep pace with current trends is to study radio and television advertising that is currently on the air. There are times that I will be in the car and I will flip through the radio dial for the specific purpose of listening to commercials Now, I know that's weird. Most people flip through the dial to avoid commercials, but I like to listen to commercials to hear what other people are doing, what other stations are doing, different tactics of presenting a message, just to get ideas and to make my own personal judgments and assessments on what works and what's effective and what's not. So, don't be so quick with that seek button. Don't be so quick with the remote control when a commercial comes on. Check the commercials out. Pay attention. Take notes. And a lot of times, especially if you're the target audience for that ad, if something appeals to you, you're going to know it. If it doesn't appeal to you, you're going to know it, and you're going to kind of make that mental note of, well, I'll try something like that, or I'll never do anything like that. Or perhaps you could put a different twist on it that could make it brand new and that much more appealing. So it's very much something that you want to do, is as part of that, your continuing education, to study what people are into, what's hot, what's not, I should say, and to try to present to people things that are being sought out. Now, as we talk about the end of this chapter, and we're going to be getting ready in a bit to start talking about what it would be like for you to put together a voiceover business plan. There is a copy of a template that is at the end of the chapter, and it is something that we're going to discuss and we'll have you go through as a project. But here's the big thing to keep in mind when you're putting together a business plan, whether it's for voice acting work or for anything else. You need to have a vision of where you want it to be. And you need to have some sort of plan as to how you will get there. In other words, you want to have a vision, you want to have a mission, and you want to have goals. When we're talking about vision, we're talking about if you were to sit back in your chair and kind of daydream a little bit and picture where you see yourself in your career in the next year, next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it may be. And you're picturing what the ideal is. What does that look like? What sort of things are happening? What sort of income are you making? How busy are you? Are you just wanting to work for yourself all your life out of your home? Do you want to go to Hollywood studios? Do you want to work in gaming? What is it that you want to do? Do you want to have an enterprise where you have people working for you? So that's your vision, what you're picturing as the really ideal of if you were successful and you had everything you wanted, this is what's going on. Your mission then becomes how you get from where you are now to that picture that you have in your vision. So it's a short statement, 1, maybe 2, 3 sentences tops, that says, my purpose is this, this, this. And then your goals are your action steps. How do you get to where you are true to that mission and you're moving your way towards the vision that you have? That's the essence of a good business plan when we're talking about vision in terms of your vocation. So we're going to talk about what that looks like as we prepare you for that project. But I would encourage you to go ahead now and take a look at that voice acting business plan worksheet and kind of get your mind wrapped around some of the things that you may need to consider, assuming that voice acting would be something that you would want to do. When we get into the project, we're going to assume that that's what you're wanting to do. So if it's not your life goal to be a voice actor, well, play along for the sake of the project. But at the very least, this should give you a sense of how you can think about things, no matter what it is that your goal in life is going to be from a career standpoint. So with that, we finish up the chapter. finish up the notes and the study questions, get them turned in. Make sure that you participate in the pre-class questionnaire before we gather together to talk about this chapter. And of course, pay attention to Cougar Mail and Blackboard for any updates and changes in what's going on in BPT 122. I'll see you online.